Hi everyone, thanks for joining this webinar. My name is Nimrod Geva. I manage the KWIZCom product group. And today's webinar is going to be about how you can implement SharePoint Forms a lot quicker and easier without being a developer or a power user. Oh, and for those of you who are not familiar with KWIZCom, we've been developing add-ons and apps for SharePoint since 2005, so it's 16 years now, and we operate from Toronto, Canada. Okay, so there's more than a few form design products in the market. I'm sure most of you are familiar with the Microsoft InfoPath. Microsoft did a serious job, serious facelift on it, and now it's called PowerApps. And I'm taking PowerApps just as an example. Many other form design tools follow the same concept. This looks like a dev studio. There's no way I can tell my marketing manager to start working with it and create forms. You know what? It doesn't have to be a marketing manager. Even if you take an experienced SharePoint implementer who knows SharePoint, again, there's no way he can start working with this tool immediately without serious training and without a supporting community. And again, I'm taking PowerApps just as an example. So looking at such dev studios or form design tools, the main problem with creating forms in SharePoint is not really solved. Because same as it was with InfoPath, you still have to depend on few technical guys, usually called form experts, to create forms for the entire organization. So the same bottleneck remains. So this was our main design goal when we created KWIZCom Forms. We didn't want to create another form designer which requires power user skills or development skills. We wanted to create something which is not a development studio, enabling non-technical users like site owners to create the forms they need without waiting for form experts to implement forms for the entire organization. Okay, so before I start the live demo, just wanted to show you 3 simple examples that demonstrate what I mean when I say KWIZCom Forms is not another designer for power users. So looking at the first example, it's very common. The need to dynamically show, hide, or disable fields in your form, depending on the user actions in the form and depending on who the user is. So in PowerApps, you'll need to write custom code for it. While in KWIZCom Forms, you just need to create a logic rule, no coding. So in your rule, you say, I want to hide or disable or show this field in these forms according to some property-based condition. Another example is sometimes you need to dynamically show, hide tabs. So again, in PowerApps, you'll need to write custom code for the exact custom condition for hiding or showing the tab, while in KWIZCom Forms, again, you'll just need to create a logic rule that says, show this tab when these conditions are met. So it's, again, custom code versus a logic rule. And finally, another very common scenario is cascading lookups, one field filtering the other. Again, in PowerApps, you'll have to write custom code for it, while in KWIZCom Forms, you'll just have to configure the relationship between these 2 drop-downs by setting 2 properties. That's it. One last thing I want to mention before starting the demo is about security. Many of the solutions, not just form solutions, many of the apps are provider-hosted apps. And when using a provider-hosted app, you need to be aware of the fact that some data is sent out to the provider environment, and some of it might be saved in the provider's database. So this brings up many concerns about the security measures taken by the provider. KWizCom Forms, such as all KWizCom apps, is a SharePoint hosted app. And this means it's a 100% client-side app, and which means your data never leaves your tenant. Okay, finally, demo time. I didn't prepare any fancy pre-designed, pre-configured forms because I personally don't like watching such demos. You can tell how much time and effort was invested in creating these pre-designed forms. So instead, what I'm going to do is show you the real user experience when creating forms from scratch. So you'll be able to see the real difference between KWizCom Forms and other form design tools. So I took a very common scenario, the sales lead form, and I'm going to enhance it step by step. Okay, so I'm going to start customizing my form layout. Things I want you to notice. First of all, the UI is based on Microsoft Fluent UI. So you'll see I don't need to decide how many columns I have in my form, or I don't need to mess with pixels. Everything is done for me, everything is fluent. And the second thing you'll see, I have one design for desktop and for mobile. I do not need to decide on a target device like other solutions. So I'll start with the regular form, and I would like to have something like this, a multi-tab form and also a multi-column form where I decide exactly where my fields appear and their size and so on. And I will also want to have some tabs appear dynamically depending on user actions in the form. And finally, I would like to change the styles as well. So let's get started. Okay, let's go to our list. This is our lead tracker. Let's click the new item and see that we have the out-of-the-box new item form, quite a long one. And first thing I need to do when I want to switch to KWizCom Forms is to activate the KWizCom apps in this list. So I'm clicking the KWizCom apps button in the toolbar. And now I click the activate button. This is just a one-time thing when you just want to activate the first time the apps. Okay, these are the apps that were activated in the site and now are available also in this list. I'll start with form layout. So here I can select between tabs and collapsible groups. I'll show both. Let's start with tabs. And now let's create our first tab. Let's give it a name. And let's start adding our fields to the layout. So I'm adding a row. I'm selecting the account field. And now I want to add a second field called account details. I can add it below. Account contact field. And I'm deleting it. I can also add it in the same row just by adding another field. And I can add additional fields. So I don't have to decide right from the beginning how many columns I want. This is totally flexible. And also, maybe I want the account field to be wider than the account contact field. So I just click grow. And now it's twice as wide as the account contact. Or shrink it back to its original size. So everything is flexible. I don't have to mess with columns or with pixels. I just add my fields. Let's add another row and add some additional fields. I want to have below the account contact some additional fields that contain the selected contacts data. So I want to have an empty field below the account. And here I want to have the contact's email and also the contact's phone. And let's have them appear right below the account contact. That's it. I'm clicking apply. And let's add one more tab This one is called lead details. And let's add some fields here. This one will have more fields. And finally, let's add the upsell field. And I'm clicking apply. And I'm going to add another tab. This one is called upsell details. And it will just include two fields. Upsell amount, and below it I want to have the upsell details. Now I want this third tab called upsell details to be conditionally displayed only if the user checks the upsell checkbox. So I'm going to add a condition, and it says show this tab only when upsell equals checked. And I'm clicking apply. Okay, let's go back to our list and see how it looks like. Okay, so I'm clicking the new item button. Okay, so this is our new item form. We have the first tab called account details with these fields and lead details. And if we want to see the third tab, we need to check the upsell checkbox, and now it's available, upsell details. Now, one more thing you might notice is that this form, let me close this, is fully responsive, which means, let's shrink it a bit to a mobile size. Look how nicely it's rendered. So you don't have to design for a specific target platform, target device. Just design it once and it will fit all devices. Okay, two more things I wanted to do is to show you the collapsible groups. So I'm going back to the form layout design page. And here I'm simply changing from tabs to collapsible groups, and I'm clicking save. Going back to my form and refresh. Okay, so these are the collapsible groups. And of course, again, the UI is fully responsive. Let's get back to tabs. And last thing I'd like to do is change the styles. By default, we inherit the current site styles, but sometimes customers want to change the styles. So I'm clicking the gear icon here, and I'm opening the style editor. Now, the nice thing about the style editor, especially for people like me, as a non-technical users, I don't know CSS and I don't want to learn CSS. We've got all these nice snippets. And for example, if I want to set the tab styles, I'm just picking up this style called set tab style. And you see by default, it makes the selected one blue and the other one is white, but I can go here. You see, non-selected tab style, the background is white, so let's make it yellow. And the selected tab style, the background color is blue, let's make it black. And you see the changes. Oh, sorry, I clicked the wrong button here. You see the changes on the spot. Okay, so it's that easy, and I can change many more other styles. For example, let's pick one of the I want to limit the width only of the daytime column. You know what, let's see what columns I have here. So I'm going to, yeah, we have a daytime column, you see, and they don't stretch all the way. Let's see why. It's because I already have a style here. Yeah, limit daytime column width. So they are limited to 300 pixels. But if I remove it, they will stretch all the way like all other fields. And I can change fonts and styles of captions and of the fields themselves. And actually I have control over everything using the style editor snippets. Okay, next thing I want to do is to make my form dynamic. And dynamic means the ability to have some fields hidden or disabled according to dynamic conditions. KWIZCom Forms enable you to show, hide, or disable fields dynamically in forms as well as in the list views, including one special view, which is the quick edit view or the grid view, which is used for bulk editing. We also enable you to hide or disable fields in that view. Okay, so back to our form, I want to make the published on site field hidden if lead source is not add banner. Only if the selected lead source is add banner, I want to show the published on site field. And I'm going to do something similar with product and quantity fields. I want both of them to appear only if the selected lead type is product license. For any other selected lead type, both should not appear here. Okay, so I'm going to my KWIZCom Forms settings. Let's get back to all apps. And now I'm going to select the dynamic column permission settings. Okay, let's select our first field, which is published on site, and let's create a rule. And I want to hide this field. In these forms, I can also select the list views. And now I'm adding the condition. I want the published on site field hidden if lead source is not equal to add/banner. Clicking apply, and let's do similar thing with product and quantity. So I want to hide the product field in the same forms if lead type is not equal to product license. And I'm going to create exactly the same rule for quantity field. So creating a rule, I want to hide this field in these forms under the same condition. Now, currently the condition is very simple, but I can make complex conditions with and or operator between them. The condition also can apply not only to columns, but I can also say if the current user belongs or does not belong to some group, for example, and so on. So these are my conditions. So I have 3 rules, and let's see how they work. So going back to my form, let's refresh it. Okay, so let's go to lead details tab, and you see now that the 3 fields that I used to have here are now missing. Let's select the lead source add/banner value, and now I see the published on site field. For any other value, it's gone. And same here, let's select product license lead type, and now I see the product and quantity field. for any other value, they're gone. So no need for code, for no complex formulas. It's just all about configuring logic rules, which are very simple. Next feature I'd like to show you very quickly is the dynamic field validations feature, which enables you to validate form fields. SharePoint has field validation capabilities, basic ones such as validating mandatory fields, or when validating numeric fields, validating minimum and maximum values. You can also do more validations, but by using formulas, which is a bit too technical. So again, like previous features that I showed you, we enable you to create complex validation rules by just creating logic rules without any knowledge of formulas. So I'll just show you some examples, some quick examples. If I want to validate that the end date is later than start date in a form, which is a very basic validation rule, doing it with PowerApps will require you to do some coding on the onSelect event, which is, again, way beyond business users' skills. While in KWizCom Forms, like you saw in the previous features, it's all about creating a validation rule with or without conditions. So let's see how this works. Going back to my form, I have here a due date for my lead and next follow-up, which is when I should follow up on the lead. And of course, the next follow-up should be before the lead's due date. Like, let's say I expect this lead to become approved by a customer in a month. So it's reasonable that I should do a follow-up on it next week. And of course, next follow-up date should be later than today. There's no reason in providing a value which is in the past. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to create these validation rules. So I'm going back to the KWizCom Apps settings page, going back to all apps. And this time I'm going to select the field constraints settings page. And this will be a bit boring because it's the same concept. You select a column and then you create a rule for it. Okay, so let's create a rule for the next follow-up field. And it must be greater than today. I can use today token. Or let's have a today plus 1. And here I can configure the message that the user will get. Clicking apply, and let's create another rule for lead's due date. And lead's due date must be later than next follow-up. So I can compare also to other fields. And let's customize the message bit. Due date must be later than next follow-up field value. And these two rules are static. I want to create a dynamic rule. So let's go here to the form again. And if you remember, I have this upsell checkbox. When I check it, I see the third tab. And it includes these two fields. I want to create a rule that validates them as mandatory, but not always. Only if upsell checkbox is checked. So these fields are conditionally mandatory. This is a dynamic rule, not static. So let's add this rule. So let's take upsell amount and create a rule, validate that it's not empty, but only under the following condition. It will be validated only if upsell is checked. Clicking apply. So I have these three rules. If I want to see all the rules, I'm just selecting here all columns. And I see all rules. Okay, let's go back to our form. And let's see how it works. Okay, let's provide some data here. And I'm selecting a due date. And I'm making the follow-up later than the due date, which is not okay. Let's try to save it. So you see due date must be later than next follow-up field. And let's correct this. And let's check the upsell checkbox, but I will not provide any values here. And again, click Save. And this time you see that there's a problem in this tab, and this is because upsell amount is a required field now. One additional thing that I wanted to show you is the patterns that you can use. So if I'm selecting a textual field, I can add a rule of type matches pattern. And here you got a library of many patterns, such as email fields or postal codes and so on. All of these are based on regular expressions, and you can change them by clicking here the Edit Pattern button, or you can add your own patterns. So if I'm selecting, for example, the email address, this is the regular expression pattern. You can change it, or you can add your own patterns such as employee codes, which are custom to your company, and so on. Okay, moving forward. I forgot to hide this slide. Okay, this is a feature I'm not going to show. It's called default values, very similar to field constraints. The features that we have here that you don't have in SharePoint is the ability to configure different default values for different users, for example, or for different groups. And you can also configure default values for fields that SharePoint does not support default values for, such as lookups or person fields. And you can also configure default values based on other fields' default values. So it's a very nice feature, but due to time constraints, I'll move forward to the next feature. Next feature is the Cascading LookApp fields. And of course, this is a very common requirement. The KWIZCom Cascading LookApp field, besides providing the cascaded behavior of ability to filter a drop-down by another one, it includes additional advantages that you can see here, but just show them to you very quickly. So going back to our form, if you remember, we have the account and the account contacts field. These are lookup fields. Account is connected to the customers list, and account contact is connected to a contacts list. And of course, between these two lists, there's a connection. Every contact is connected to a company, to an account. Now, we want to reflect this connection between contacts and their accounts in our form. Currently, out of the box, you don't have such cascaded behavior. So let's configure it. So I'm going back to my settings page where you see all KWizCom apps. And I'm going to Cascading LookApp settings page. This settings page enables you to convert every regular lookup to a KWizCom Cascading LookApp, which is an enhanced lookup field. So these are the regular lookups that we have in our form. Let's select the account field, first of all. So very similar to regular lookup, you can select a target list and a target column, but you can also select a target site, which you don't have with the regular SharePoint lookup, which means you can have a lookup to remote lookup lists, which are located on different sites. Then you have the filter settings, and you got various types of filters. First of all, you can filter by view. So going back to my form, before we change the cascading behavior, look what happens when I click the account drop down. It has many items in the lookup. I want to filter it by a view. So I'm going to select here filter option based on this view, only active accounts. And I'm going to select apply. And let's see the results immediately. So I'm refreshing this page. And let's click now. And you see that only part of the items are appearing here because it's filtered by a view. But we can do another thing. Sometimes, even when you filter by a view, you got too many items, like hundreds. And many times you would like to filter it by additional columns from the remote lookup list. So you can do it by choosing this option, show filter columns from the target list. So I want to filter my accounts by another column in that list, which is called Account Manager. And let's click Apply, and again refresh to see the result. So you see now there's a filter above my lookup, which enables me, for example, to see only Robin's accounts. So this way we allow end users to filter the lookup as they need. Okay, now let's go and configure the account contacts. I want to make it cascading, like filtered by the selected account. So I'm going back to my settings page, and let's select account contacts. And this time I want to filter it by another column in this list. And the column is account. I want to filter the account contacts by the account column. So I'm selecting here the account. And then I need to tell it according to which field in the contacts list, which field I'm comparing to do this filtering. So I'm comparing account to the customer lookup field, which is in the contacts list. One more thing that I'd like to do, I'd like to allow the users to add new contacts in case they're missing. Clicking Apply, let's see the result. So you see now, when I click the account contact, it's empty because I didn't select any account. So let's select an account. And now this list is filtered by the account. Let's select another account. And you see the relevant contacts. Okay. Now you also see the add contact, the link that I added here. This enables me to add a contact to the remote contacts list directly from here without having to leave this form and go to the contacts list. So this is another optional enhancement. Okay, moving forward. I forgot to hide this slide. Okay, this is a feature I'm not going to show. It's called default values. Very similar to field constraints. You can configure default values. The features that we have here that you don't have in SharePoint is the ability to configure different default values for different users, for example, or for different groups. And you can also configure default values for fields that SharePoint does not support default values for, such as lookups or person fields. And you can also configure default values based on other fields' default values. So it's a very nice feature, but due to time constraints, I'll move forward to the next feature. Next feature is the cascading lookup fields. And of course, this is a very common requirement. The KWizCom Cascading Lookup field, besides of providing the cascaded behavior of ability to filter a drop-down by another one, it includes additional advantages that you can see here, but I'll just show them to you very quickly. So going back to our form, if you remember, we have the account and the account contacts field. These are lookup fields. Account is connected to the customers list, and account contact is connected to a contacts list. And of course, between these two lists, there's a connection. Every contact is connected to a company, to an account. Now, we want to reflect this connection between contacts and their accounts in our form. Currently, out of the box, you don't have such cascaded behavior. So let's configure it. So I'm going back to my settings page, where you see all KWizCom apps. And I'm going to Cascading LookApp settings page. This settings page enables you to convert every regular lookup to a KWizCom Cascading LookApp, which is an enhanced lookup field. So these are the regular lookups that we have in our form. Let's select the account field first of all. So very similar to regular lookup, you can select a target list and a target column, but you can also select a target site, which you don't have with the regular SharePoint lookup, which means you can have a lookup to remote lookup lists, which are located on different sites. Then you have the filter settings, and you got various types of filters. First of all, you can filter by view. So going back to my form, before we change the cascading behavior, look what happens when I click the account drop down. It has many items in the lookup. I want to filter it by a view. So I'm going to select here filter option based on this view, only active accounts. And I'm going to select apply. And let's see the results immediately. So I'm refreshing this page. And let's click now, and you see that only part of the items are appearing here because it's filtered by a view. But we can do another thing. Sometimes, even when you filter by a view, you got too many items, like hundreds. And many times you would like to filter it by additional columns from the remote lookup list. So you can do it by choosing this option, show filter columns from the target list. So I want to filter my accounts by another column in that list, which is called Account Manager. And let's click apply, and again refresh to see the result. So you see now there's a filter above my lookup, which enables me, for example, to see only Robin's accounts. So this way we allow end users to filter the lookup as they need. Okay, now let's go and configure the account contacts. I want to make it cascading, like filtered by the selected account. So I'm going back to my settings page, and let's select account contacts. And this time I'm going to filter it. Let's see if I have no need to filter by view. This time, because I want it to be filtered by another lookup field, by the account lookup field, I want to filter and this time I want to filter it by another column in this list, and the column is account. I want to filter the account contacts by the account column. So I'm selecting here the account, and then I need to tell it according to which field in the context list, which field I'm comparing to do this filtering. So I'm comparing account to the customer lookup field, which is in the contacts list. One more thing that I'd like to do, I'd like to allow the users to add new contacts in case they're missing. Clicking apply, let's see the result. So you see now, when I click the account contact, it's empty because I didn't select any account. So let's select an account. And now this list is filtered by the account. Let's select another account. And you see the relevant contacts. Okay. Now you also see the add contact link that I added here. This enables me to add a contact to the remote contacts list directly from here without having to leave this form and go to the contacts list. So this is another optional enhancement. Up until now, you saw how I create dynamic forms without a single line of code. This is how we enable non-technical users to create custom forms, and I still get to other topics of multi-row forms and workflows. But sometimes you need deeper customizations, and same as we provide the capabilities to non-technical users, we also provide an API for developers who wish to do deeper customizations. With that API, we also provide many cool snippets that enable non-technical users like me to enhance these forms with custom code without even understanding how the code does it. Let me show you a quick example. So we got this form, and if you remember, account contact is a lookup column. And this lookup column is connected to the customer contacts list. And I wish that whenever a user selects a contact, to get that contact's email and phone into these two fields. So going to the customer contacts list, this is my lookup list. So you see that I have an email column and phone column, and I wish to retrieve these two columns into these two matching fields in my form when the user selects a contact. So to do that, I'm opening the script editor, and this is a tool for developers, of course. And it got all documentation, how to use our objects and how to get a handle for the form object and the context and everything. But for non-technical users, you can use these snippets. And the snippet that I would like to use now is called Get Additional Columns from Lookup Item. And I get this header and these lines of code that I don't care about. The only thing I care about is this part. These are the variables that I need to update for the script to run on my form. So basically I need to just provide my form's field name. So first of all, I need to update the lookup field name. So in my form, the lookup is called account contact. But you have to use the internal name. So to get the internal name, I'm going to the list settings and I'm going to this field, account contact, just to get the real name. And this is the real name that you see here in the URL. So I'm just copying it. And I'm going to provide it here. Next, there's a variable called fields to get. These are the fields that I want to get their values from the target lookup list. So they're called email and phone. So I'm okay. And fields to set, these are the names of the fields that I want to update in my form, which are also called email and phone in this case. So I even don't have to update anything here. I just need to click Save. And the form will refresh now. And let's check how it works. So I'm selecting an account and an account contact. And as you see, these two fields are updated. Let's select a different account and a different account contact. And you see they're updated. So it works great, but I would also like to make these fields appear as read-only because there's no sense in allowing the user to update them. So this is very easy also. I'm going to the script editor and I'm picking this sample that says set fields appear read-only. And it's here. And again, all I have to do is update this variable with the real names of my fields, which in this case are the same. So I'm just clicking save. And again, the form needs to refresh to load the new JavaScript code. Okay, so let's see how it works. Okay, now they appear as read-only. To make the form even look better, I would just hide these two fields unless they have some value in them. So this way they will completely appear only when you use an account. Same way you can use the script editor to calculate things or to change button captions, get information from the profile service, and so on. So you can use really for complicated scenarios. I'll show you another example scenario really quickly. Okay, so I got here another example, which is a purchase order example. Okay, so I have here another type of field which is called repeating rows. This is for multi-row forms. So see what happens when I select a product. I get the price automatically, and when I change the quantity, the total is computed automatically. And of course I can add rows, and this is all part of the repeating rows column type, which is part of KWizCom Forms. But the thing that I wanted to mention here is that I'm using the exact same snippets, code snippets, to get the price column from the products list, because this is a lookup. And I use another script to calculate the total and make it appear as read-only calculated field. So it's that easy to create all kind of expense forms, purchase order forms where you need to get additional columns from remote list or from other sources, as well as to calculate totals or other calculations. So this API with the snippets, it opens the door for so many advanced customizations. Okay, unfortunately we don't have much time left, but I would like to spend just a few minutes to explain, to talk a bit about our custom actions, which are workflows. And I didn't get to talk about our printing services and multi-row forms in more depth, but just to explain the workflows. So we have two entities related to workflows. They're called activities and custom actions. Activity is a single task that has no context, such as add item or copy item, send an email, get user profile property, or set item permission, all the actions that you see here. You can look at each of these activities as a function. It gets variables, and it may also return a value that you can use in another activity. And they're also reusable. And the next entity is a custom action. Custom action is actually a workflow. It can be triggered either by user click on a ribbon button or a toolbar button if it's a modern UI, or by an item event such as item added, item deleted, and item updated. Once a custom action is triggered, it triggers a series of activities one by one, where each activity returns a value that can be checked using conditions, and this is the way to create branching. And at the end of the custom action, you can also redirect to a form, to the edit form again, to the view form, or to some URL. Let me show you just quickly an example of custom action. So I'm going back to my lead tracker form. And let's go to the configuration page. Okay, and let's go to our activities here. So I got several activities. First one, let's look at the first one, which is called approve lead. So the type of the activity is update item. And this one updates the current item and sets its status to customer approved. Let's go to another one which adds an order. This one adds an item to the orders list. The orders list can be in the same site, but it can be on a remote site, unlike the out-of-the-box activities. And here you can see that I'm updating the order with variables. So the activity doesn't know what values it's getting. It's just getting variables, and the binding is done at the level of the workflow of the custom action. I'll show it in a minute. And the last one is send email. This is also a simple task. You see here I'm using tokens. For example, the recipient, I'm taking it from the assign to column, and I can use all kind of tokens here. Okay. And here I'm using, this is my message. I can use rich text, including images and formatted text. And you can see that I'm using variables as well as a token. Meaning token is the actual column, where a variable is dynamic variable, which is bound only at the late binding, at the level of the calling custom action, the calling workflow. And let's go now, and I'd like to show you how a custom action looks like. So going to custom actions, I have one custom action. I deactivated it, but let's have a look at it. It's called approved lead. So it's a ribbon button action, and it's triggered when you click this button. And I can also display a confirmation message. So when the user clicks the button, he will get a confirmation message. I can display an icon and so on. And then you see the activities that are triggered. So first of all, it triggers the update the current item. And it sets the status to customer approved. Then it calls the add new item, and it updates the orders list with these values. So you remember in the activity I had variables with percentage, brackets and percentage. Here I bind the value. By clicking the link, I can bind values into these variables. This can be the current item columns or other values, even the site URL or any other hard-coded value that I want. So when you have variable, you bind the values here at the custom action, which calls the activity. And finally, it is sending an email, and here I'm binding the subject, and the bound value is just a fixed string. So this is how it works. When you want to add branching, you can add an activity group. Activity group is a series of activities that run only under some condition. This is how you create branching. Finally, in the custom action level, you can have conditions, like here. Here I'm showing the button, this approve lead button, only if status is equal to new lead, or when status is equal to customer engaged. So this is how a custom action is configured. Okay, so we reached the end of the session. I'd like to mention that there are additional webinar recordings about workflows and other topics in KWIZCom Forms and other KWIZCom apps. Also, all our apps are available for free trial. Just need to go to our website, follow the instructions, the installation instructions to install the packages on your tenant. The trial versions are fully functional. And of course, if you have any questions or require any assistance, please feel free to contact us at sales@KWizCom.com or simply contact me directly at nimrod@KWizCom.com. Thank you again, and I hope to see you on our next webinars. Bye-bye.